Hey there, everybody. We're back again for another D2 Livestream Overload. I love the name. I can't get enough of it. Every time I see it, I laugh because it is definitely an overload, that's for sure. Thank you for everybody who's already joined us. We've got a few people watching, so that's good. I can't see the chat for some reason on my screen at the moment, but Fabio, do you see it? Is there anybody saying anything?
Hold on. I'm trying to, because I cannot find the...
It's always important because I want to know if they can hear us. That's the main reason.
Nobody's writing anything.
But
there is a video slide.
Martyn's making some nice background noise for us.
Martyn, I'm pretty sure that you have already a lot of fans lined up to watch you. There is already one dislike.
My mum. Is that my mum?
You know what? I'm going to hit the like button just to compensate.
Good job, Fabio. Now we're even. Because it was me. No, so
I guess the people can hear us.
Yeah.
Hey, Dario, can you hear us?
I guess so.
That is watching.
I guess he can, or he would have said something. So we have a fun guest on tonight. It's somebody who always blows my mind with how much he knows about what's going on in the architecture industry and especially on the technical side. Also, just generally what's going on all around. I don't know, Fabio. Do you have anything to add about Martyn? He's been a good friend. It's been always fun to hang out with him, to see him at different events.
I can't wait for the conversation to get political tonight. I'm just gonna say that.
So,
and also, you and I don't really have any news for this week, so maybe we should ask Martyn, but later on,
Martyn
if
has
there is
some
any
news for
major
sure. Martyn is the news.
Jason, we really suck at finding news in this field.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's just I didn't find any news that I thought was interesting. That's really the challenge, right?
But anyway, let's not waste any more time and let's bring Martyn on the show.
So just before we bring him on, I would like to say that Martyn is actually, I'm going to let Martyn tell it because I'll probably screw it up, like what he's doing and what he's from. So Martyn, I'm bringing you on.
Okay.
It's good to have you. Thanks for joining us,
Hello.
taking the time.
No worries.
And I want you to tell, if for people who don't know, what it is that you are doing in
Wait.
Oh, sorry.
Before we do that, we need to go with the lightning round.
Yeah, we have some questions for you. I completely forgot about it.
All right. Martyn, you know what? It's a little tradition of ours at the D2 Overload to ask 5 lightning questions where you don't really have to think a lot. You just pick one or the other. And this is a way for us to break the ice, although we don't really need to break the ice with each other. But these questions can be very good conversation starter for later. The question now is, are you ready?
Yes.
All right.
Maybe.
So, in a post-corona world, do you travel on a cruise ship or you fly first class?
Fly first class every time. Wouldn't catch me dead on the ship. Unless it was my own.
Urban design or mountain cabin design?
Mountain cabin design. I think that's much more fun.
Trump or Boris Johnson?
Oh, Christ. Well,
You can say neither.
I have to go with Boris Johnson if you could give me that choice. It's kind of like diarrhea or solid shit. You're not really giving me much of an option there. Different.
All right. Bitcoins or Tesla stocks?
Tesla stocks every time.
Politically correct or freedom of speech?
Oh, God. If I say freedom of speech, that means I have to let Trump people and racists and all those people do it. And if I say politically correct, I pretty much ban myself. So I have to go with freedom of speech and just have to argue with people.
Martyn, welcome to the show.
That's
man.
right.
Hello. Good to see you in various places around the world.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to say.
I just want to show my COVID ponytail. This is my current problem. I can't get my hair cut till August. I think I might drown in my own hair. So there you go.
So you guys are still completely shut in, or how is it at the moment in Great Britain?
Hard to say because our politicians keep contradicting each other. But at the moment, the pubs are open, but you have to sit mainly outside. You have to fill in a form and say who you are and where you're from. That's been about a week. That's been pretty messy in some places. Restaurants are open, but they've had to drastically reduce the numbers. And sitting al fresco in Britain in the summer is in itself a mark of bravery. And what else can we do? My parents live in Wales, and because they live in Wales, they for some reason had a lockdown for longer, and so I haven't been able to go back and see them. They couldn't travel more than 5 miles out, and if I'd have gone in, the police would have stopped me. So, it's only because of last 2 weeks. I think last week I've been able to go back into Wales. So we've got this really fractured, confusing situation. Masks weren't mandated until I think yesterday. And now they're mandated, but not until 10 days' time. So you have to really keep up on the news to know what you can and can't do. Because you're better off just staying indoors and waiting for everyone else to die. That's the best decision. Yeah,
let them all kill themselves. It's like a zombie apocalypse.
It is. We don't quite have as many crazy American kind of. I'm not wearing a mask, and watching the news and just watching the beautiful irony of Americans. There's this one everyone else to die British reporter who was wearing a mask interviewing a Trump person, and the Trump person was yelling and screaming at us, saying, "You're wearing a mask. You're letting us down. I'm not wearing a mask because it's my right. It's my freedom. It's my freedom that I don't have to wear a mask, and you are imposing it on me by wearing it." I was like, so your internal freedom is that you don't want to wear a mask, but her internal freedom or idea of what she can do, that counts for nothing. She because it's another person. She couldn't even emote, but it's the other person's freedom to wear one or not. And there's just this total irony. And Trump saying the more we count, the more we test, the more we get. Therefore, let's not test so much. And I think I put on Facebook, let's just stop counting Mexicans coming in then, because then there's not an illegal. Let's stop counting bullets. Let's stop counting murders. Let's stop. Let's not count anything. Make it illegal to count anything.
Yeah, I think
Wall Street.
We could reduce murders to zero. I mean, murders can go down to zero. Yeah, I mean that's easy.
Doesn't count.
I also love this thing with the masks. Like the idea that it's against your freedom to wear a mask because. This is kind of a really an American thing. I'm free to do whatever the hell I want to do. But I never heard anyone protesting or getting going, in the street or anything in an uproar that they have to wear a shirt or shoes in a grocery store or in a restaurant. But that's a law. Like you have to do that. But I never heard anybody say that. I actually saw a really funny Onion article came out that said Walmart is going to start to require that you wear pants. I mean, so there you go.
And the most ironic thing is that even if whichever historical biblical character went up and got the 10 Commandments, if one of them was "Thou shalt wear a mask," Christian Americans still wouldn't do it. It's kind of like, yeah,
we interpret it differently.
Yeah, you're very differently.
Open to
I think
interpretation.
it's almost a different religion.
One thing that I've learned on the internet is that people will use things like freedom of speech to justify their inability to create a valid argument. Like a few days ago, somebody made a homophobic post on LinkedIn. And so, I was like, what the hell, man, shame on you. And somebody was like, hey, how dare you say shame on you? This is freedom of speech. I'm like, dude, you want to criticize me, then don't use freedom of speech as an argument, because then that makes you a hypocrite. And it's like, I don't know, like the reason why I asked that question is because I think that democracy is failing us in a way, because we're giving voice to idiots. And, now the argument is, how do we define idiots?
Yeah, democracy is a failure. And I was thinking about this the other day, and the reason it's a failure is because of social media. And it's allowed people who want to appeal to idiots to really appeal to idiots and to collect them together, and they all believe the same crap. And you start talking to them on Facebook. I'm feeling kind of saying a lot of anti-American things. I love Americans, but there are some which
well,
are
I'm
just
American.
Like, crazy.
I don't feel offended.
You start on a normal conversation, and it just takes a left field, and you're going, where the hell did they pull that from? Where's this information going? Then you work out that the person who's been your friend for 5 years is an anti-vaxxer, crazy Christian, believes in pro-life, but is quite happy to kill every single old person over 60 for the sake of the economy. It's kind of like, what do you want? Do you want to save the babies, or do you... It's like an 85-year-old late-term abortion by just allowing COVID to kill somebody. I mean, at some point you have to say, you're holding a hypocritical view. You should just chill and just realize that if you want to be for the one, you've got to be for the other. You've got to support everybody. And then as people get older, they get more and more crazy as well, like my dad. So
what happens when you find out that you have, say, one of these people in your family? Because, I had to confront my dad, who came to me saying to me, yeah, it's fucking vaccines and people want to do them and they're illegal. I'm like, Dad, you made me get all the vaccinations when I was a kid. And he said to me, yeah, but that wasn't forced. It was something that we decided to do. And I'm like...
I mean, I go home, my parents don't like tattoos, so I have to tell girlfriends to, if they've got any tattoos, to cover them up, because it's just going to be bad. It's going to be really bad. And then it's just like little nuances where, God, this is like a weird thing to digress into, but I took a girl home once. We were having Sunday lunch. I went home. Came back to Oxford. 2 weeks later, I went back to see my parents again, just me having lunch. My mum goes, yeah, X, we won't name her, doesn't food combine? And I'm like, what do you mean doesn't food combine? Oh, well, yeah, when she's like working her way around the plate, she ate all the peas, then she ate all the potatoes.
Yeah.
Then she ate all the chicken. And I'm just like going, oh my God, this is like a new bar that people have to be able to food combine. Otherwise, my mum's going to remember it and you're a bit odd. So I have to deal with this kind of, so I have to deal with some of this kind of crazy stuff. But in relation to what we're talking about, the whole kind of gay marriage thing was just for them. What on earth? It's ruining their marriage because they're having a marriage. And I'm going, what are they doing to you? There's no problem. It's just like, let people do what they want to do. And so that ends. He goes, oh, they're just odd. So yeah, I've had that kind of conversation. And then in the UK, we started teaching sex education in primary schools, and it was very much with a kind of you're gender fluid. You can be whatever you want. Love between man and a man, woman and a tree. Everything's fine. Don't worry about it. And that brought out the Muslim community saying, no, you can't. We don't want this. We don't want our children to be taught this. Which is 50-50. You know, it's kind of like, yeah, well, this is what is happening in the UK. And I went back to my parents. My dad said, see, they don't like it. That's the way that we teach our children here. And I'm like, you don't even believe in gay marriage, and you're just using that to hit another community that you don't particularly like. Don't you see that you're just like pulling this stuff out of your ass just to
also,
hit
he had
people?
changed his mind because now the Muslims were against it, or what?
Yes, but he hadn't changed his mind. He was just using it as a way to whack them. And I'm like, oh God. So sometimes Sunday lunches can get quite. I don't rise to it as much as I used to. It's just there's no changing. But the only thing I will rise to is when they bring up Brexit crap, and then I have to just unload. So yeah, but
yeah, you're the most vocal person I know on the subject.
Exactly.
Brexit, and I really,
I'm sorry, my Twitter feed, which was about BIM and architecture, has turned into me just saying "you stupid fucking idiots" and then posting something which is just ridiculous that's happened. It's just unbelievable. This is where democracy fails. This is where you have idiots who don't really understand. No one understands the ins and outs of customs and World Trade Organization rules and tariff structures. Now, I reckon I could do a degree in it. But the people who just like think, oh, stuff it, forget it. We're out now. It's great. But we haven't actually left until January the 1st.
Yeah.
And at the moment, they just made an announcement last week that they were putting a massive building for customs in Kent all of a sudden because there was going to be £15 billion worth of forms to be filled in by lorry drivers, and they need to be somewhere.
Yeah.
Just stupid. It's I feel every time I go to Europe, I apologize. It's just the most embarrassing thing.
Martyn, let me ask you.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, what are some of the things that you think Brexit is going to affect in terms of economical relationships, say, between England and Europe, and maybe even England with the United States? Because I think I understand that Brexit is not going to have any impact on the trade between the United States and England. Am I correct?
Well, it will do, because if we leave without a deal, which is currently what it's looking like, the pound is going to drop into the toilet. It's going to go down to about $1.10 or lower, and the euro will get hit as well, because it is going to affect Europe to a certain extent. So suddenly the pound is less, so all our prices of stuff we buy in America goes up, and all our oil is in dollars, so that goes up. I think a lot of our debt might be in dollars, so that suddenly goes up. And we had something right after the original vote, which they called shrinkflation. So Toblerone took out one of the mountains or one of the chocolate peaks. And so we ended up with bigger gaps. You could park a bicycle on a Toblerone in the UK, but everywhere else in Europe got a proper Toblerone. We got a gappy one. So that was like one thing. And then literally everything you bought, like cereals, the packaging was the same, but they just changed the number on it, so you got less of it inside the box.
Oh, they've changed it. So they've adjusted the price per kilo or whatever.
Yeah, they call it shrinkflation because they give you less for slightly more money, and so that will happen again. All our 50% of our food comes from Europe, so that's going to be a bit of a problem, and a lot of it is just in time. And if we've got 6 million lorries queuing up the roads and blocking up the ports, the food's not going to arrive on time. So that's going to be a food problem.
But Martyn,
actually, can I tell you one thing? When I was working as a cook in England, you know that England has some of the highest standards for quality of food that comes to England. And so sometimes you will find better tomatoes in England than in Italy because of these centralized...
No way. That's a complete lie.
Wait. I'm not saying that this was all the time. I'm saying that you would expect to go to England and say, okay, you get the bad cucumber, but that changed when the European community happened. And I remember because I was there and I was talking to the guy that was doing the deliveries for us, and he was like, you guys are getting the same stuff that they get in other places.
Okay, maybe if you were working in a very decent restaurant that ordered its tomatoes from Italy, but if you go to our local shops and buy a tomato, it's a condom filled with water that's been painted red. There is nothing tomatoey at all. Or they've got really, really super thick skins because for some reason it makes them a bit more redder. So when I went to where the fuck did I go? I went to Lecce in southern Italy, and we were there on holiday, and we just kept pulling over because the people were selling tomatoes on the side of the road. I would eat them like sweets. You've never tasted anything so amazing. And then you come home, you look at a British pizza or a British tomato, and you're thinking, "What? I'm just not going to even insult myself by eating it because, you know, there's more tomato in my San Pellegrino than there is in the tomato in here. You know, I wouldn't wish a British tomato.
I was gonna say,
I haven't been there for a very long time, so I guess things have changed.
Martyn, I was gonna say, what do you need? You say that like 50% of the food comes from Europe, but I mean, honestly, come on, it's all luxury goods, right? You don't need your French cheeses and your Austrian wines and everything. Yeah, you guys will be fine with your, with your beans and your.
Oh, come on. We've had for 40 years we haven't had to grow anything nice. We only grow root vegetables to feed to pigs. So everybody suddenly is going to be eating gruel.
That's what I was thinking.
British food. We don't even eat the fish we catch. And one of this big thing about Brexit is that we get our fishing back, which is like, ooh, great, because we don't eat it. We have to sell it back to the EU, who are just going to say, put a tax on it. It's like the most stupid thing in the world. The things that and it's 0.2% of our GDP, and it's just insane. It is just I think nonsensical.
I agree. I think that people just this is the most amazing thing about the current affairs of what is happening in the world, and that is that everybody believes they understand everything about everything, and that's not possible. It's not possible at all, and nobody wants to listen to somebody who actually knows what they're talking about, who doesn't try to act like they know about everything. They know, I know about this specific thing, I know what I'm talking about. Everything is so complex today. How could you possibly know enough about certain topics to even really talk about it? It's frustrating.
There was this in the FT yesterday. There was an analysis done by one of the universities. I can't remember, Midlands University, and it said that in the 4 years that happened. Oh my god, my AirPods are going to run out of battery. That's a bit weird. In the 4 years that I don't know how we're going to do that. In the 4 years that since the Brexit vote prior to COVID happening, all the job losses were in the areas that voted leave. So they just kicked themselves in the balls. That's how stupid it is. We lost Honda pulled out, Sony pulled out, loads of people just started leaving, and no one. This year is called the transition period, but we don't know what we're transitioning to because we haven't got a deal. So there's no really transition because we have got no end point. So the transition will just happen on the last day, and everyone will be running around deciding, does being in the UK make any sense for us? Doesn't it? And a friend of mine in Norway said, you just wait. What's going to happen is, in the Norway experience, you're on Amazon, you're buying your bits, you go to the checkout page, and then there's a customs tax slapped on stuff that's coming from outside of Norway, or it's going through a border, and it's like 30% added on. And he said that'll be the first thing that most people will see, will be stuff that's not in distribution in the UK but is somewhere else in Europe is suddenly going to go, you're paying more for everything you buy that's not. I've got friends who import stuff, and they're importing it instead of to the UK, they're importing it to Holland because they don't want to pay VAT in both places. So they just bring it all into Holland. That means loads of stuff is just going to be still imported into the UK. They'd sooner have the European market than have the UK market with 60 million people when you can sell to 500 million.
So, but
I'm just going to have to... Go on.
Yeah, go ahead. Do you need to do something? It's fine.
Can I charge one at a time? Okay, yeah, I'm just thinking...
I have no idea. Does one have a microphone on it and the other doesn't?
Yeah, this is interesting. Can I charge one? Speak?
Yeah, you can hear.
I can still hear you.
I can charge one at a time. This is going to be an interesting... I'll be swapping over halfway through. Okay.
Yeah, Martyn, I just wanted to maybe dig a little deeper into what you're talking about, because right now you're talking about like generally what's going to happen, but because of your specialty, which we never really got into because we did the questions at first, but because of your area of what your area of expertise in the media, covering all the BIM stuff and all of the stuff that's happening in AEC area, what do you see happening there? Like that could affect visualizers, architecture studios, construction, things like that.
Everyone I know in the visualization market has been decimated. Jobs have disappeared. So that's not good. For the first 2 to 4 weeks of shutdown, architectural practices were running around trying to work out how to work from home because they were very office-centric. All the servers were there, all the machines were there. So a lot of them had to try and work out very quickly how they get their data in the cloud, how they work in a collaborative way.
Yeah.
Everyone worked out Zoom. So there was a lot of people buying hardware. So we had a lot of workstations being sold. And then I think they just kind of ticked along. But the real post that is that no one really knows what the state of their jobs are. Some of the big players let go of some architects, and now they're just trying to get back up to speed again. And they all seem quite busy. But if you're an architect who's working on universities, retail stuff, I mean, those really are in a bad place.
And is this also an effect from Brexit, or you're talking about just COVID right now?
This is just COVID. I think Brexit is this kind of, we've had that impact already to a certain extent. The full effect won't really happen till next year. And what's happening is our government is just deciding to borrow hundreds of billions and is going to throw it in construction. So we're going to end up with some things, but I think they're going to be like railways and bridges and.
Because I just know that a lot of people that follow us and a lot of people that I know, it's always a lot of foreign people have gone to the UK to work in visualization because it's the most robust market for visualization in the EU, and the fact that those people, I mean, it's like, is there still uncertainty about what they can do? Are they going to be able to stay there? Are they going to can they apply for visas? I mean, like, because if they have to all get sent home, then where are the people coming from?
A lot of people rush to do passports.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people getting British passports, Italians, friends of mine that British passport.
I was desperate to get a European passport, so I was on a European forum and I just said, "Oh my God, does anyone want to get married?" And the first person that answers is a gay guy, and I'm like, "From Portugal." I'll go, "Yeah, okay, whatever." my as you now know, my father will not approve. But so it's just, I think that. Ooh, hang on, there's a noise. Just check that one out. Right, and this is going to be interesting. Oh no! What is?
Oh.
Now we can appear.
It just cut out. I think the microphone's on the other one.
Yeah, I'll just charge them. I think you can hear me now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a real problem. So I went to an event with our friends from Chaos Group at Foster & Partners. We went to the pub afterwards, as you do, and chatted to a guy from Venezuela who's obviously a very good architect. And he said he was on the phone in London speaking to his mum in Spanish And someone said, "What language are you speaking?" And he went, "Spanish." And he goes, "Oh, go home." And I'm like, "In London? This is after Brexit. After Brexit, that pretty much, it was okay if you're a racist to come out with that kind of shit." And that there are practices in London that have a very high number of. They're just taking the best people from around the planet. It's if you want to get a good job, come work at Zaha's, work at Foster's. They'll not pay you a lot of money, but you will have that on your CV. They've just rolled out what will be the regulations, and they're not good. You have to earn at least 30,000 or 35,000. That's the entry point, and then there's payments to the government. It becomes an expensive hire. Mm-hmm. But they've really just it's unbelievable. We've got actual vegetation rotting in the fields because we can't get people to come over to pick it, primarily because of COVID. But next year it'll be primarily because of Brexit. And we rely on them to come here. One farmer flew in some Romanians on his own chartered flight because otherwise his crop was going to go. So I think that it could very much damage the richness of talent that's available to come to London. And I think what you might see is studios opening up in other countries where they pull the talent in locally as opposed to having it all in London. And I think that's a great, it's not a nationalistic waving flag. I think it's a great thing because it just distributes it a little bit more fairly. And you're seeing what you're seeing in Germany with the building work that's going to be going on in Frankfurt thanks to Brexit is immense. So I think there are going to be economies which are going to really benefit. And I think Germany is one. Frankfurt's going to improve. Dublin will improve as well because there's a lot of finance goes there. Luxembourg, Holland. It'll distribute out that work. And maybe there'll be more local offices of larger practices, which means they might be looking for more local talent.
But then practices, don't you think that they will go where the labor is a lot cheaper, say like countries like Romania, Slovakia?
I think who's to say, but it depends where the jobs are. That Foster's and Zaha's managed to get jobs everywhere around the world and run them from wherever. They'll set up a local office on a job and they'll do it. But yes, you could become it depends what the regime is going to be like. I think Boris is going to have to drop taxes. We're going to have some very dodgy people who don't want to pay tax to come to the UK to attract them here. And it might be a good place to operate a company and pay hardly any money, just so that they employ people. But that doesn't really work when you can't bring talent to your offices or wherever they are. And the one thing that COVID has taught us is that you can have talent anywhere on the planet and have a good communication and be productive. So, in some ways, I think it's very COVID. The positive lessons from COVID have been that kind of level of connectivity that we can have nowadays has liberated the way we will work, not the way we had worked. There's lots of architects I know who don't want to reoccupy the same level of space they had before, because they could get rid of their current office and move to a smaller office in a more impressive building, just to have client meetings rather than hosting everything and having it all there. So I think it's going to change the way we work. And I'm very saddened by the immigration laws that have come in. And the hilarious thing on the news is that every time they mention freedom of movement, they say that they've stopped the freedom of movement for EU citizens. They never point out the fact they've actually stopped the freedom of movement from Brits, because Brits obviously have exceptional, and we can travel. We've not sacrificed anything in this, but it means that British people can't easily go and work elsewhere. And then it's even more bewildering when you hear people who live in Spain who are Brits who voted for Brexit, and now they're just realizing what that means. And it means that they have to pay £200 to £300 a month for health insurance because there isn't any free insurance anymore. It's just stupid idiots.
It's really unbelievable. I mean, I think it's a very common theme, though. I mean, it happens everywhere. The people who actually vote for a thing are usually the people most affected negatively by that thing. And I don't understand this, where you think, is it just they don't understand, or that they don't care, or they've been fooled? I don't know.
It comes down to an emotional reaction. And unfortunately, we've been brought up in the UK to think that Brits are exceptional because we won the Second World War and we dominated the globe and we invented jam. Well, I don't know. You just get told a whole load of shit when you're growing up. And so you kind of feel slightly exceptional. Not that I do, but I think it's kind of an English thing.
It's American too.
Oh yeah, well, so it's.
What are you talking about? We won World War II. Are you kidding me?
Anyone who had an empire has ended up being a bit of an arsehole, and we've got it in our culture. And I kind of feel that it blinds you to the reality of the consequences. And I think most people I know who made a vote for Brexit did it emotionally. They emotionally wanted to be alone. And they emotionally wanted to be something that Britain hasn't been for 200 years. And then when you look back at those 200 years, we were a bunch of bastards. And we were like selling slaves and taking over countries. And, sorry, Ireland, we're just going to take all your food and ship it back home. Oh, you eat that rotten potato. Well, we did exactly the same in India. We killed a whole lot of Indians by taking all their food and shipping it abroad. And then there was famines. I mean, but people who vote for Brexit don't want to have that reinterpretation or examination of their history. And I think that's the thing that's kind of come up politically with Black Lives Matters. Yeah. You know, I was so happy to see in Belgium them attacking Leopold. I mean, I think I'm very proud of the young next generation who actually know what went on, have understood what went on, and see the injustice. I think it's very hard for older people to have it, but I think a lot of people slate this up and coming generation. But I think they're much more liberal. Yeah,
I don't know. I think also that the reason that this is true is that younger people are generally more connected via social media. So social media can be a bad thing, but also can be a good thing, because older people, they think about back when they were the age of those people, and you did not have access to information like you do now. And I believe that this can be a good and bad thing, of course, but in general, this is why the younger people are much more connected to this, what's going on. Of course, there's a lot of kind of incorrect stuff out there and things floating around, but at least that they're getting together and saying this. It doesn't matter. It still matters that the idea is that they're against this injustice against specific people because of their race or their sexual orientation.
And they have a right to feel an injustice against themselves, because the last 20 years in terms of wealth concentration has totally focused up to the older end, where their house prices are crazy. I mean, a friend of mine was trying to insure one of his kids for on a car. It was like £3,000 or £4,000 a year to insure. I was like, insane. That never happened when we were kids. Our parents paid a bit extra to stick us on the car, but it was never like get another mortgage because the kid wants to drive our car. I think that things have got incredibly expensive. Everybody's taking the whole way up. And in general, I can sort of talk a little bit about our industry, and I think software. So we've just gone through COVID. I'm looking at the Viz market, which has been decimated. There's no two ways about it. I mean, there are people there who have absolutely been decimated. And what have the software companies done? You're still paying your subscription money to them. They still are getting their money. But the actual ability for the whole industry to make any money has disappeared. And yet they talk about a relationship with a customer being mutually beneficial, and they talk about working together. Well, they could have for 4 months just stopped subscription payments or halved subscription payments, or done something to ease the pain, because that's a fixed cost. When you take out a subscription, it's a future debt. If you're doing it month by month, okay, you can stop, but then you've got no tool. Okay, you get a job, you can start it up again. But if you've paid for 3 years, 1 year, you can't get out of it. And it strikes me that when the market's in pain, they still make their money. I mean, there have been some offers, like Autodesk gave BIM 360 away for a period of time. I mean, it is a sales ploy, but on top of it, it did help a lot of people. So you take it's not a bad thing for Autodesk to have done. So there are some upsides, but I do feel that the industry hasn't really supported the bottom dropping out of a whole market, and that obviously boils down to basically Autodesk and 3D Studio Max and however much people are paying for that these days. I was talking to Chop the other day, and Chop said that the new V-Ray stuff is pretty pricey. They haven't brought an upgrade up for two years, but if he's listening,
he's there,
he was saying that it's quite a bring him in. He was like saying it's quite a big chunk just straight over, and it's just that the industry definitely needs to get a soul and not just be about making money and SaaS, and they need to start thinking about how have people survived. I don't know how some of these people have survived, because you've all got overheads, and if there's no income,
it's a lot harder to crack software these days too. So the lower there's always a people posting on the Octane user group. It's quite hilarious.
Well,
the version they're using is one that was like the last one that was kind of crackable. And it's pretty obvious.
So this is the thing, is that cracked software makes the software companies even more money, because they like to get 20 grand out of each infringement. And all this software does, it can't, as soon as you launch it up, if it's not done properly, it just sends a message back to whoever it is, and that's it. You're done. Not that you should be cracking software, but it's like it's a case of it makes them money. If you go back to a call in February, Andrew Adagnost is boasting to the investors on the investor call that they had something like $50 million worth of non-compliance income, and that he was going to put some more money behind that team, because obviously it's a good thing. Now, some of those people, yes, they probably have cracked the software, and they're bound to rights. But I know it's very hard to keep track of software, especially if you're a large corporate and the software that you get doesn't have any kind of protection on it, because it's actually in the software people's positive side that you could possibly infringe and have to make a payment. Mm-hmm. And I spoke to a reseller who's developing their own application to monitor their customers' licenses to stop them getting sued by software companies, because they're fed up of it.
That's insane.
And I just think it is insane. But it is. It's like at some point you just want to go time out, everybody. Time out. This industry should not be about suing your customers. Or if someone's bought some stuff from you, you should at least be polite and nice about. Can we have a look, or can we have a look at your blah blah? And it's like, I since we've moved to SaaS, so historically, where before the money people got involved in the software, how do we make more money out of selling the same old shit? A software company would have to improve the product so much that you would take the money out of your pocket and pay for it, because I want that. Yeah. When you're on a subscription
they get rewarded if they do bugger all. They get rewarded if they do something shit. If they break the software, they still get rewarded because the money's being paid for, and the update just happens, and it's like, oh my god, a retrograde step, or oh no, this isn't particularly good. What have I paid? What have I got this year for my money? Well, you've got the right to use the software. That's what you're paying for now. Yeah. And I think that there's no real there's no measure. There should be more of I think that software companies should maybe charge 50% of whatever it is. But if you think the software is that good, you can pay them a bit more as a tip. It's like, oh yeah, that's a great feature. I'll pay you $10 for that. That's
you get your name on the website.
Yeah, you get your name.
Hall of Fame.
Do you think that, for instance, products like Blender will drive other companies to lower drastically the price of their SaaS, so to trade, for the masses? So that
you do know, as soon as you said the word Blender, Chop stabbed himself in the leg. No, unfortunately, the market for free tools or community developed tools has never rivaled in the 30 years I've watched this market. None of them have ever really risen to anything. They'll always be not as good as a shipping product, or they'll never be developed at a pace you want them to. I think you look what happened to Linux. That it was kind of free and cool, and everyone was getting into it, and then suddenly all the money people jumped into it, and now Linux is a big industry within itself. And getting the software itself is not really the aim of it. It's all the other bits that you have to buy to have the infrastructure and capabilities added on top. I think that there have been moves, in the architecture field of firms who are so fed up with products like Revit because they are 20 years old and they don't know what a multi-core processor is, that they feel that they would start from scratch and write a new one themselves, the architects, because it's been 20 years and processors now have how many cores, and Revit sees how many of them. It's insane, but they're just stretching that. They're stretching the life of that product out as long as they can.
That's like a whole conversation in itself.
Yeah, so that is a whole conversation in itself.
How many cores does your DCC use?
Well, yeah. You're very lucky. And so Intel made this decision to lower the clock speed and increase the number of cores, but the software market decided not to. And so software got slower. Oh, well done, brilliant. But the amount of power that your laptop now sucks is through the roof. I kind of feel the design market in general needs a revolution. We're the same software is being stretched out for 20 years or more. What's next? And I think the software industry has decided it's SaaS and it's online. Mm-hmm. But I've never really been won over by anything I've really seen, other than the fact you can collaborate. Doesn't really excite me at all. I'm looking for new paradigms. New stuff. I think desktops are good. I don't think cloud is bad, but I think that cloud is part of the future, but it's not the future. And I'm seeing the gamification of the architecture market, the gamification of your side of things. I mean, that's pretty much what we're seeing. We were having a conversation earlier about this, where Unreal and Unity are suddenly kind of players in the Viz market, and they want to compete with still tools. The tools you make high quality stills. They say, oh, you can do that instantly, model the whole building, and never have to pay any attention to any detail again because it's already there, and you just have as many pictures as you want from it. I don't think it really works out like that.
Not really.
But the people who are buying that are the architectural firms, thinking, oh, really? Okay. And they're thinking about what they can do with their clients with it. And I was talking to Francis H. from Foster & Partners, And he said something interesting. He said, while we're an architecture firm, we actually sell experiences. We don't really sell architecture. And so what was important for Foster's was to have tools which they could show their clients an experience or experience. So VR or AR or whatever, have something which the client can sign off on the concept and the idea of the structure that they're selling. And he said, we don't need to know where the toilets are and where the pipework is and where the wiring is when I'm talking to the client and getting that buy-in. So with BIM, why the hell are these people forcing us to do all this kind of minute detail design early on, when all we really need is geometry and surfaces and a nice environment to show the customer where we're going. And in some way that's going, I think BIM, I'm going to say this, I think BIM's done a massive disservice to the design community, because BIM is becoming more and more about just documentation. It's not really about design. Yeah, the design is happening in Rhino and Grasshopper and even fucking SketchUp. It's happening in other places, and then BIM is the place you stick it to get the drawings out. You're putting constraints even before thinking about the design. So let me then ask you: is there a technology that got you excited lately about the future of anything digital? Anything digital. I'm very interested in I'm very interested in AI, and I think there are some AI tools coming out for architecture, for design, which can really speed up some of the really boring crap, like laying out car parks and stuff like that. If you look at Gensler have got an innovative vision. So let's just call BIM as documentation. BIM is AutoCAD. That's there. The actual beginning part is when the client turns up with the brief, and then you have to create a design which matches the brief. You don't do that in BIM. You do that somewhere else. And the idea that they have is to innovate in a environment which allows rapid changes, information feedback immediately from floor square feet or meters per squared, to costings, to solar radiation, all in one space. So you quickly come up with something that meets the brief. So when the client comes to you and says, "Oh, why does the building look like that?" you can actually tell them that the analysis in the AI or your feedback or your intuition from the design is that this design meets the brief precisely. So it hopefully stops them pissing about further down the line where they want to add another floor or introduce a wine rack somewhere. I don't know. Just it just stops that kind of change mentality, which ruins a lot of projects. So I'm kind of fascinated by that. I think RTX from NVIDIA was pretty impressive. Coming out just to see the differences in that. And then the other thing is it was there a minute ago. What was it? The whole idea of Rhino Inside, which I've mentioned before. I think Rhino. There are very few companies that don't rip people off, and
it's one of my favorite companies.
Bob McNeil is just. I love him to bits. He's one of the funniest people I know, and he's just. The first time I met him, I went to Seattle. I went to his office. I walked into the office. He was sat there with his dog. He's on the phone, and I just heard him go, "I don't really think Rhino's the right product for you. There's loads of other ones out there. Bye-bye." I'm like, that just doesn't happen. It's not right. And then we had a coffee, and I was sat down talking to him, and he was standing up. I thought it was kind of like part of his exercise regime, and he was putting discs in boxes. And I was just like, what are you doing, Bob? I don't understand. And he goes, "Oh, we've got a rule that if you're not doing anything and you're up and you're making a coffee, then you put some Rhino CDs in the boxes." I mean, this is early on. I mean, this is quite maybe 20 years ago, but it's that attitude has just maintained. And I always said to him, I said, when are you going to sell out? Who's going to buy you? Is Autodesk going to buy you? Blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. And he goes, how much money would it cost for me to stop you doing the thing you love the most in the world and get out of bed and get excited about? And I said, well, I haven't a clue. And he goes, well, neither do I. And that's it. That was his description of his mindset. And so I think, yes, Rhino might take a long time to develop in between the releases, but they get there in the end. But Rhino Inside is something which I don't think a lot of people realize what it is, or how much it could change the industry. Because Rhino Inside is inside Revit, it's inside BricsCAD, it's inside ArchiCAD, it's inside Unreal, will be inside Vectorworks, it's inside SketchUp. Obviously, it's inside Rhino. Rhino inside Rhino. So you've got this geometry backbone that links pretty much every design tool that's out there. It's inside Blender, I think. So it can suck geometry out of Revit, and it could squirt it into Unreal, or it could squirt it into BricsCAD, or it's an exceptionally powerful ability that hasn't really been used yet in anger. But it's also a possible, we're in an industry of babblefish. We have, I know architectural firms that employ people they call data wranglers. Their job is to provide the data in a format on demand for whatever it is going to go into next. Data just doesn't flow because you've got all these different proprietary formats. And so if you've got this backbone of Rhino Inside where things can flow, with Rhino being the central repository, and hey, you say it's just geometry, but I think it can extract a hell of a lot more. Then you've got a very, very fascinating ability to get geometry out accurately and put it into something else. I think the only other technology I've seen is things like Omniverse, which is from NVIDIA, but I think it's called the USB format. USB format. I think Autodesk is supporting it, so that could be another one to watch.
So it's kind of like this Rhino Inside is ending up to be a little bit like a universal format. I mean, that you can use it in multiple. You could potentially use it in multiple places.
Yeah, and then there's a Rhino as a headless version of Rhino that sits in the cloud as well. So you could have geometry being written. I'm guessing, I don't know if Grasshopper sits with Rhino in the cloud as well, with the headless Rhino, but you could possibly just squirt Grasshopper geometry or stuff into other products. And so if you look at the other thing, the one part of the AEC market that is really poorly serviced is the conceptual side. And you've got products like SketchUp, and you've got Modular, which is on top of SketchUp, and then you've got Rhino, Grasshopper, those Blender maybe. So there are these products there, but they're kind of just geometry. There's not really a lot to them. And I think that there's probably someone needs to look at that market to try and work out how people start. But
do you think that like the integration of the softwares with like VR could actually help expanding the abilities?
So my vision of the future is an architect in a VR environment or a desktop, whichever you're comfortable with, but you're designing in situ. So you have the actual, you have the actual building site, the actual environment around you. And you're rather than just like plonking your rendering to have a look to see it, you're actually designing in context. And you look at things like Twin Motion, and they're sort of pointing that way. But you could actually start conceptual designing in the city map, and off you go. And you've got all the tools to do some interesting stuff. But maybe you want to drive the geometry with Grasshopper. Fine. If you've got Rhino Inside and it's poking into Unreal, and you're just going to suck the geometry through hey presto, you've got a complex part of your building or all of your building. But this also then lends itself to the market is incredibly fragmented anyway. I mean, put up one building takes 25 companies, let alone thousands of people, hundreds of different types of software packages. And so with that, you've got to have a much more fluid ability to move the geometry around, to move the information around without it being a pain in the bum. And that's essentially what we've got now is, you know, proprietary formats, people who become specialists at receiving information that's fucked up and then unfucking it. And then there's a change. Familiar. And then
information unfucker. That's a new job description.
And it's like, oh, right, we've made the change. We're going to send you our geometry again. Oh, great, got to unfuck it. Okay, and then you put it in again. And it's like, it's a one-way thing. There should be better standards for interoperability, and IFC isn't it. I don't know what the hell is going to be it, but I think the biggest problem with having so many software companies in the space is they all want to, and this is the sad thing, is that really popular products that have proprietary formats make hostages out of their customers, and at some point, some bastard in the company is going to start using it, either because there's a competitor coming along or because they just want to charge you more money and you've got nowhere else to go. Yeah. And I feel very passionately about the level of hostage taking in the AEC space. And so my mission, if I have one, is to constantly look at the market and see what's coming up, but also try and point out where I feel that there are some liberties that have been taken, or customers really do feel that they're trapped. And when customers are trapped,
I'm going to tell you something.
Yeah.
What you're saying is completely correct, and I'll tell you, Chuck is going to laugh at this. A lot of architects and a lot of visualizers have made the switch to Blender already.
He's stabbing himself.
He said before he didn't stab himself, but he facepalmed. So it wasn't that extreme.
But, you know, like it works, especially if you're a small freelancer. And they're doing it quite successfully. I think there is something there. I think, you know, the fact that 3ds Max is now doing this indie license for smaller creators. I heard people talking about Cinema 4D also maybe bringing out something low cost for like smaller offices. I think that people are tired of being forced to have to use one specific software because, you know, the proprietary file and everything. And I don't know, you know, Rhino was the choice of architects because that gave you freedom, right? You had Rhino and you could chuck everything inside, opening it, take it apart, rebuild it. Rhino allowed you to do that.
Yeah, I think Rhino had it's had a very interesting history. And I think for the first 3 years of its inception, I kept asking Bob when he was going to make it, you have to pay for it. And he was just like, he was always shrugging his shoulders, when it's ready. He took so long before he actually charged for that thing. It was unbelievable. And what I was finding was that 3D Studio Max guys were using it because it was really good at importing pretty much anything into 3ds format. So it got its primary usage in the 3D Studio space. And then I think Grasshopper then brought it to the next level where people started looking at sort of generative design. And Francis H from Foster's, his dad's Robert H. Robert H used to work at Bentley. He wrote generative components, which was the first real generative design tool. And I was in London when Bob launched Grasshopper, and I had Francis next to me, and they gave the demo, and I just got this elbow, and he just went to me, I told my dad it was all about the interface. And I was like, because the interface with GC was like seriously crazy.
You're talking about the launch that they did at the Architectural Association?
Christ, I'm old. It was
in 2007.
No, this is Grasshopper's older than that, isn't it? I would have thought.
I remember I went to a presentation from David Rutten.
Yeah, David gave it, and it was in a white room. That's all I can remember. And I remember I was at the front, and I thought it was the design museum. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. You've got a better memory than me. So you were there. You must have looked like a mere child with a hat on.
I didn't have it. That's so cool. Maybe we were in the same room.
Martyn, I have to say. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. Well, no, it's just funny reminiscing about going to amazing launches, and the Grasshopper one so I was really into GC and really into generative design, and then you just saw somebody design an interface which was essentially like plugging wires into effects pedals, and it just made so much sense. And then it really just set the market alight, really. And it's Rhino is behind nearly every single interesting building, that at some point it's in there, and it's normally at the start, but for some reason, marketing wise, they'll tell you it's been done in BIM, blah blah blah, but the reality is the geometry, which is the precious part of the design, has come from a Rhino based start point. And it's funny. It really is. It's funny that these things. I'm trying to think of other launches I've been to where you kind of suddenly get it. It's like, boom, wow, knocks you sideways.
Yeah. So Martyn, I just wanted to say that if we've been actually talking for over an hour already, which it's flying by. No, it's flying by. It's I really enjoy speaking with you every time that I've ever had the chance to do so live and in person, this is as close as we're going to get right now.
Yeah, I know.
Unfortunately, because I love to fly around and go to events and meet people and talk to people. But Fabio and I actually have a meeting that we're going to have to be in in a half an hour or so. Otherwise, we could talk all night.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today, and I would actually enjoy having another chat with you, off the record sometime in the near future. So, Fabio,
Definitely.
You have anything to add?
No, nothing. It's just that, this was made for the cameras, and so it might have felt a little bit unnatural. But I have to say, every time that we hang out with Martyn, we laugh like idiots for hours, and it's a lot of fun. And
I really missed D2 this year. It's a real shame.
Yeah, it's too bad.
I'll see you before D2 next year.
I hope so.
I just wish we had a chance to spend some time together, but it's fine. We did it this way.
You did it, yeah. Well, at least Chop knows he doesn't have to stab himself in the leg anymore.
Chop, do not stab yourself. Do it for us.
Blender BIM. Anyway.
So thanks a lot, Martyn, and we're going to stop the stream now. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. We hope that it was fun and partially informative. It always is with Martyn, both things. But so, Martyn, we're going to stop it now, and then we'll say goodbye properly afterwards, okay? Thanks, Fabio.
Yeah, catch you later.
Thanks, good night, Martyn. Guys. Thanks a lot for watching. It was a pleasure.
See you next time. Okay. It's all.